It's time. It's time. You say, well, what are you talking about? Well, look at verse number 3 of 1 Peter, the 4th chapter. Peter said that we've had enough time. Now, notice what he says. He says, for the time already past is sufficient for you to carry out the desires of the Gentiles. You see, there's no more time left for us to invest our lives into carrying out the desires of the Gentiles. Now, first of all, let me tell you, when Peter says the desires of the Gentiles, he's not talking about an ethnic group. He's talking about unbelievers. You see, for the Jewish person, and Peter, by the way, was Jewish, but for the Jewish person, there were the Jewish people and there were the Gentiles. The Gentiles were the unbelievers. You know what? It's time for all of us to say, I don't need this anymore. The time has been fulfilled. Now notice what Peter says. For the time already past is sufficient for you to carry out the desires of the Gentiles. Now, when Peter says that the time is sufficient, it means that it's full. It means that it's completely to the top. You see, we as believers need to understand this. We don't need to give ourselves over to the lust and the desires of the flesh. Why? Because that time is gone. That time has already been fulfilled in our lives. And so Peter is telling us here, and again we go back to verses 1 and 2, and he's telling us that we need to look at these desires of the Gentiles, these desires that the unbelievers have, and we need to say, you know what, I had enough of that. It's sufficient. We need that attitude. We need that attention. I don't need to lust anymore. You know, people, we get into trouble because the devil comes around and he says, oh, you need to insult someone so that you can get more credit. You need to do this. You need to lust after that. You need. But God says here in his word, it's sufficient. You've had enough. Enough. It's time for believers to say to sin and say to the desires of the flesh, enough is enough, no more. I can't contain it. It's not for me. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever eaten so much that you just say, I've had enough. I can't eat anymore. I remember going to Bible school. And, when we were in Bible school, we didn't have a whole lot of money. And the people that I hang around with didn't have a whole lot of money. But there was a place called El Phoenix in Dallas. And it had really good Mexican food. But they had a buffet. And I think it was like $1.60, and you could eat all you want. I mean, we would go in there, and we would eat and eat and eat, because we probably weren't going to eat again for a while. We just didn't have the money, but I had $1.60. And you see, there came a time in every one of our lives while we were sitting there eating where we just had to push away from the table and say, enough is enough. I was remembering this the other day. Now, it was our custom to pray and to fast for the first Friday or actually the first Saturday and Sunday of every month. And I remember after that 2-day fast coming, and Monday afternoon came, and we usually broke our fast at noon. And I had a Bible college friend, and he said, I've got a coupon here. Buy one giant pizza, get one free. You want to come along with me, Leon? You want to? And so we jumped in his little Volkswagen and we both devoured a giant pizza. Now, let me say this. If you've been fasting for 2 days, that is not a good idea. What we needed to do is say enough is enough. And that's what Peter's talking about. You've had enough sin. Now, he mentioned several sins. He says sensuality. Now, what is sensuality? It's basically being guided by our senses. It's basically following whatever our senses tell us to do. Now, many times this word is used in connection with sexuality, but it's not always used in connection with sexuality. So it's really being a sense-based person. So we've had enough of following that sensation. Then he goes on and he says, lusts. What is lust? Well, it's an out-of-control desire. You know what? Get it in your mind. Have it in your intention. You've had enough. You've had enough. You don't want any more. The next thing he mentions is drunkenness. Drunkenness, being out of control. Being out of control in your life. Being out of control with alcohol. You have had enough. I have had enough. That's what Peter's talking about. We've had enough. Carousing. This word carousing means to party, to carouse around and to walk around without aim, without purpose. We've had enough. Say it to yourself. I've had enough. I don't need any more. The next thing he says is drinking parties. Now, here the word drinking parties actually would mean parties where the people are drinking to a point of being out of control, drinking to drunkenness. We've had enough. And abominable idols. Now, how many of you know that many of us here in the United States, we don't think that we have abominable idols, but you know what? We do. It might be a television set. It might be a car. It might be guns, or there's all kinds of things that can become idols in our lives. And they're all an abomination. So what is Peter saying to us? As we bring this podcast to the close, we need to have this mentality. Not only a mentality of resistance that we talked about in verses 1 and 2, but a mentality that says the time has come and I've had enough. I don't want any more. And you know what happens when we set that as our intention? Then all of those things lose control in our lives. I don't want any more. That's what Peter is saying to us. I hope that you take this to heart today. God bless you as you go throughout your day. May the blessing of God overtake your life. That's our prayer for you today.